Everybody needs it. But how do we get it? And how do we know that's being derived from the right place? We're here with Brandon Epstein, co-founder of Zen Dude Fitness. How you doing, Brandon?
Man, I'm doing really well. It's another beautiful day down here in Colombia where I'm broadcasting out of, and stoked to be here with you, man.
Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to start off with a plain and simple question for you today. Brandon, are you happy with your life right now?
Man, if you ask that question, I can't give you a one sentence response. And I'll dive into that later into the episode. But I believe happiness is an experience. It's not a never ending state of being or a state of being that you just stay in for like a month period at a time. And so right now, I'm having a happy experience here with you. I'm happy to be here. So in this moment, I'm very happy.
Right on. So you did an article for us asking the question if you can create sustainable happiness. And of course, as I mentioned when I opened the show, happiness can be derived from so many different things. But how do we know if we're deriving it from the right thing? A lot of people attach identity to the achievements that they make. What are your thoughts on that? On basing your happiness on things you cannot control, like awards, winning things, those type of things.
Yeah, so I really believe that happiness can be derived from things that are external, but that can't be the sole place where you're getting your happiness from, right? Like if you just win a championship game and you're celebrating afterwards with your team, like allow yourself to be happy in that experience and understand it's something external outside of you. But there needs to be a foundation that's set below that allows you to create, sustainable happy experiences. So like I said before, I don't think happiness is something you experience all the time. Life has all different types of textures. Sometimes we're in pain, sometimes we're sad. And that's what makes happiness such a pleasurable experience. But what you need to do is understand that if you can lay down a foundation that says that on a consistent basis, I'm going to experience happiness if I can step into identity that I'm proud of and that I choose myself, then you're kind of putting the power back in your hand. That's what I try to live my life by personally. And I try to coach people on is just saying, you're not always going to be happy, but the best you can do is decide who you want to be and try to step into those shoes every day so you have control over your states of being for the most part.
Yeah, I think I look at a lot of people, people that have a lot of money, people that are sports stars and everything. And a lot of them have outside, private problems that the general public doesn't see. But you think in your mind, man, if I had $1 million or man, if I had six-pack abs, I'd be the most happiest person in the world. But that's not necessarily true, right?
Right. And it's because we're constantly creating a blueprint which ultimately decides if we are experiencing happiness or right. For example, like Justin Bieber, I don't know if he's happy, maybe he is, maybe he's not, but his blueprint probably of what happiness is so far outside the realms of what most people get to experience in their lives that if he's not constantly hitting that standard and he's not stepping into and actually living that blueprint that he's decided makes him happy, then it's gonna be really tough. And I think that's why we see so many people who have tons of success and then fall off just a little bit, really struggle because their blueprint in their mind says happiness is a private jet, unlimited access to whatever food I want, so on and so on. Versus, you look at, I live here in Medellin, Colombia, and I see people, indigenous people from the Amazon who are like super happy with like nothing just because they have some food to eat and they're just hanging out with their family and friends. And they don't have this blueprint that's so grandiose. So what they have is the blueprint of what happiness is. And so they can sustain it on a consistent basis because that's what they decided happiness was. And it doesn't really require a lot of things or a lot of external events to happen to trigger those feelings.
Okay, so you mentioned this blueprint several times. Give us an example of your blueprint. When you wake up in the morning, what's the philosophy you follow every day? And how do you judge whether you had a good day or not?
Definitely. So I think my blueprint and everyone else's is going to be different, and it's also going to be ever changing, right? And that's where growth comes from. So I don't want to be exactly where I am right now for the rest of my life. I want to evolve, I want to grow, I want to achieve bigger and better things. But for this moment, I wake up today, I'm like, am I free? Can I do what I want to do all day? And that really is what happiness is to me right now. I consistently experience high levels of happiness when I consistently experience high levels of freedom, of being able to do what I want to do. And I run my company Zen Dude Fitness, and I just do that all day with like my best friends and people I care about. And that's the most fun thing I could really think of doing. And so that's what my blueprint is. So if someone took that away from me and they plugged me into a job right now that I didn't want to do, I would admit, like, I would not be a happy person until I changed my blueprint and decided that I could be happy within. And so blueprints are ever changing. And right now it's just, I want freedom to create what I want to create within my own business and my own life. But the overriding philosophy around every day, what makes me feel like I'm living a happy life, is I just follow one philosophy. And that's, I believe that everything that's happening to me is for my best interest. And it sounds like kind of woo-woo, and I've taken the circular paths around like the personal development stuff. And you hear a lot of this stuff that sounds like fluff, but I'm a very straightforward guy now. And as much as in the past would have been like, man, that's some BS. Like, I'm not going to buy into like, yeah, everything's happening for your best interest. But, you know, after time's gone by, I realized that like when you look back at past things that you used to think were like things that sabotaged you or things that caused you pain, you realize that they actually serve you in the future. So if you can just come back to the present moment and say, hey, whatever's happening right now in this moment is for my best interest, then you can come back to that state of bliss.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that about, you know, past moments and stuff like that and growing from them. But there's also that other part is like, you know, we've all done stupid things in our lives. Sent a stupid text message to a girl. We either, you know, you made a mistake at work. You said something you shouldn't have said. And at that time, it feels like the absolute worst thing in the world. You feel like you're never going to recover. It, you know, it weighs you down all day, all night. You can't sleep. But, you know, you look make a couple of years, maybe even like a couple of months, weeks even down the line, and you don't even remember. You can't even remember the basis of those things. So maybe that's one thing that we can try to think about is, you know, when something doesn't go right, that was our fault, you know, and we have to own our own faults. You know, if we did something wrong, you know, we have to own it. That's part of the whole thing. Just realize, you know, the time does pass, and pretty soon you're not going to even remember what the whole thing was about.
Of course, man. And, you know, I try to be really careful with my words and like what I try to share with people, because I understand there's a lot of stuff that sounds really good in theory, right? Like Tony Robbins, I love him, but a lot of his like theory, as much as I agree with it, it's like when you really try to grab that and consistently bring it into your life and say like, this is how I create sustainable happiness, it's tough. There's like so many different elements that go into like personal development philosophy of like way you should see the world and being spiritual. And I think that if you can just believe one thing, if you could just believe that whatever's happening, like that stupid text you just sent out, or, you know, that piece of cake that you just ate that you're now immediately regretting, like if you just believe somehow this is in my best interest and you're constantly doing your best with what you have, then that's the best you can do. And I really believe that.
Yeah. And, you know, bringing this into the fitness and health part of life, obviously happiness and, you know, a low amount of stress is definitely on the positive side of your health and fitness. Is probably one of the most important things. Um, you know, I think when we try to think of those things, you know, we try to, you know, I think standards get in the way. That's what I'm trying to say. Standards, setting higher standards for ourselves than we can possibly reach. And of course, you know, you want to strive to go to high places. You want to strive to reach, you know, huge unattainable goals, but you know, you have to be realistic with yourself. So in terms of standards, you know, is it a better idea in the long run of things to just set some lower standards for yourself in order so that you, whatever your goals you're trying to achieve, you know, you don't burn yourself out along the way?
So this is a delicate game that you have to balance. I think it's very important to, you know, create a blueprint for your life of what you want in the future and saying that I'm striving towards this. but there needs to be a little bit of detachment from your present state. So you need to always know that you can come home and be in your body. Yes, you set into motion. You want to achieve all these things. But at the end of the day, like right now, where you are in this moment, like you're okay. Everything is okay in this moment. And I talk to some people who have a hard time buying into this philosophy. Like, well, what do you mean? Like the world's so messed up. Like there's ISIS and like global warming and like, life's not going, all these things aren't going well for me in my life, my girlfriend. And I'm like, dude, what's going on for you right now? Like what's terrorizing you right now? And if you come back into your body and you're just present within your body and you can take a deep breath and you're just like, oh, nothing's like really messing with you right now. Unless you have like a chronic illness that's causing you chronic pain, majority of people should be able to find happiness in the present moment. And yes, we all want to achieve bigger and greater, more grandiose things for our life, but you always need to know you can come home to your body because everything's okay here.
Yeah. And and on that same note, it's like it's okay to be bored. It's okay to like just like you said, just be in yourself. I think a lot of high-strung people that they're always striving for super high goals and always, trying to outdo everything. As we mentioned, they're probably not the most happy people because they don't know how to just detach themselves from all that stuff and just be within their self, meditate, whatever it takes just to be bored.
Yeah, I mean, and pain, boredom, whatever you want to call it, is a natural process. Like, what people don't understand is a lot of times is they forget that you have to experience pain to even know what pleasure is, right? You have to experience darkness to know what light is. You have to experience the lack of sound to know what a beautiful song sounds like, right? Or a bad sound. Like there needs to be the contrast on each side. And so when I think about pain and experiencing pain, it's not something that upsets me. I just go into it and I experience it. I'm like, all right, this is growth right here. I'm growing and I'm moving through this. And usually the difference between like pain and suffering is like when you suffer, you just try to avoid whatever negative feelings that are coming up for you, or you're just not doing it, you're not taking action on those things. But if you go into them and you feel into them and you allow it to just soak through your entire body and you feel the pain of whatever it is, whether like your significant other just broke up with you or you're not happy with where your body is right now, we'll feel into that all the way. And we all know everything is energy. And eventually, if you feel into these like negative feelings enough, they dissipate because it's energy. And eventually your body exhausts itself. It's almost like a dog who goes through a really traumatic event, right? They like have almost seizures to get it out of their body. Us as humans can do very similar things. When we're experiencing pain, just go into it with everything. Stop avoiding. It's a culture of, we think we need to take a pill and numb that pain, or we need to, to drink something or eat something to avoid and get away from the pain. But you can get back to that pleasure and that happiness when you go into the pain, you feel into it, you allow that to stick into you. And eventually you're not just going to sit in that forever. You're going to move through it if you go all the way.
Yeah, and pain can be so many things. It doesn't have to be physical pain. It could be, like you said, upset with your loved one, upset at work. You didn't get the raise you wanted, whatever that may be. And it's easy if one of these things happens to you and then a second one happens to you in a short enough period of time where you can fall into that victim mode where you're like, why me? Why is everything happening to me? But if you let yourself get into that mindset from the beginning, you're gonna find reasons why bad things are happening to you.
Definitely. And interesting thing you pointed out was the victim mode, which a lot of people fall into. And what I want people to understand is that you don't go from victim to feeling completely enlightened and just, monk level where you're just always blissed out. Like there's levels that you have to go through. And the only way you move up the levels of progression of just feeling better and better are through conditioning this psychology. So there's like 4 main levels that I think about. I actually learned these from my buddy Mike Bledsoe. He runs this podcast called Barbell Shrugs, and he talked about you start out at this kind of victim state, and that's like, oh, why me? Why am I in this body? Why is my metabolism so slow? Whatever it may be, if you're talking about your body. Then you move up to a state of like being positive, like, you know what? I think it's possible for like things to get better. Like I think I can get a good body. I think I can like feel better. I feel like I can have more energy. And then that's not it, though. You have to move up and you go up to beliefs. And you know what? You go past like positivity and thinking to believing and really establishing these core beliefs. But that only happens through conditioning yourself to constantly have these emotions of being more optimistic. And once you get to that belief stage, you can evolve past that till where you get to that like monk enlightenment stage where you surrender everything. You're like, you know what? I'm not even going to worry about this anymore. I know all the best things I know everything's happening for me. And that's the place we want everyone to get to. And I said that in the beginning of the show, that eventually you want to evolve to this place where you really believe that everything's happening for your best interest, but it's not a quantum leap from victim to believing that. You need to condition your psychology slowly every day, seeing bad things that happen in your life and saying, how could this serve me? Or what can I learn from this? And staying optimistic. And when you do that long enough, you move up the levels. And I've seen this through so many people. And that's how you go from being like a pessimistic person who believes the world's out to get you and nothing goes your way, to the kind of person that's like, why me? Why do all the best things happen to me all the time?
Yeah, you have to just accept change a lot of times, no matter what it is. And the cool thing is that you can choose to embrace it. You can choose to take the bad things that happen, or the changes that you're not comfortable with in life, and choose to embrace them and go forward with them, and learn something along the way, as you mentioned. um there's things that happens in our lives that we can't control, like, that are no doubt they're going to really impair our happiness, like death. If somebody we love dies, you know it's okay not to be happy during that moment, but we can choose to move on and choose to learn from all those life events and make life better.
Yeah. I think a big thing is that a lot of people fall into other people's rules. And I like to talk about this a lot, that like we believe that we can't be happy in this certain moment because either our family or maybe our friend circle or the media tells us that what you're experiencing right now isn't happiness. And a lot of people follow these rules that contribute to them not experiencing happiness because they're just living by someone else's rules. Well, the truth is, when someone in your family dies, you could choose to see that as like an incredible experience. You'd be like, wow, they had such an incredible life and they're going on to, whatever your beliefs are, they're going on to something better, or, they're going to be reborn, whatever philosophy that you believe in. But you can choose to rewrite the rules. You don't need to suffer because other people suffer. And that's like a huge thing that can change your life completely. There's a lot of unwritten rules that you're following that you don't even know, that either family or your religion or whatever has placed upon you, that are causing you to suffer. And you don't have to follow those rules. Like, outside of following the law, make up your own rules.
Yeah, and here's one thing. What do we do about those friends and family in our life that weigh us down, that are always griping about something, that you know, they're just not happy people, and it seems like there's no hope for them? I mean, it sucks to just think that we should just cut them loose out of our lives, but maybe we should. I don't know. What do you do with those people?
Yeah, well, this is like a super pragmatic way to look at this, but I think of growth, and I think of growth friends, and I think of maintenance friends, right? Or maintenance people in your life. So if your parents are like super negative, and whenever you get on the phone with them, they're complaining and they're like worrying about you not making the right life decisions, like eventually they become maintenance people in your life, where you spend 10% of your time giving them energy, giving them love, making sure that they feel good, because they're people that have cared for you and they still do care for you, and you don't want to come off completely. And then the other 90% should be with growth friends. You just have to create a new circle of people who are supporting you, people who believe in you. And it's always a choice, right? It's always a choice to remove people from your lives or keep them. And that's why I did make the caveat of having maintenance friends, of people you spend a little bit of time with. Maybe it's friends you grew up with. And you're like, man, my buddy's been like in and out of rehab for like 10 years, but he's that dude that you really want to take care of. So he's a maintenance friend. You give him that 10% of the time to take care of him, but he's not someone you spend the majority of your time with. Otherwise, if there's like a new person that comes into your circle and like they're not very positive, like they're talking, they just are negative for no reason, just eliminate them and start to only bring in people to your circle who are supporting you, uplifting you, even like stroking your ego a little bit. And that's okay. A lot of people think that, you know what, I need to have like people who are going to be real with me. No, you don't. There's enough realness out there in the world, okay? I think there's enough suffering of people being pessimistic and real. Find people who are going to come into your life and just support you, stroke your ego at times, build you up, because that's the issue a lot of people have. And whether any people want to admit it or not, like a lot of people are suffering. A lot of people are in pain. So don't make it harder on yourself. Bring in people who are going to support you.
So I want to ask you a personal question here. Um, has there been any event in your life that you thought was really catastrophic and that you thought, man, this is it. I don't, I don't know where I'm going to go from here, but ultimately turned out to be something that you learned from and you ultimately turned into joy.
Definitely. I wouldn't say catastrophic. I haven't gone through like, any crazy car crashes. I haven't had like, my parents haven't died. No one super close to me has died. But just like as like an entrepreneur, right out of college, I started my first like health and fitness app company. And like that just like never took off. And I invested so much into it and I got into like a ton of debt trying to make it work, trying to figure it out. And eventually like I just like cut my losses and I got out. And, at the time, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of prospects. It's like, this is all I ever known. The last few years I spent trying to build this company and nothing good came from it, perceivably at that time. And then it's, moving away from that has allowed me to step into doing something where I've never been like more blissful. Like I went from sitting in front of a computer doing analytics all day, which I don't like to do, even though it was a health and fitness app company. That's like basically what I had to do, to now me and my business partner walk around the cities of Medellin, Colombia, shooting videos in front of graffiti, doing workouts, and just playing. My life has become play. And I didn't think that was possible. I used to like watch, love Gary Vee, love like all like the marketers who have good intentions for helping people, but they very much create this idea in your mind that entrepreneurship should be struggle and pain and sacrifice. And that's their story, but it doesn't need to be yours. And I took that on as mine. And so when my company like failed, I was like, shit, man, I'm in all this debt. And like, what do I do from here? And it turned out like I learned to play. I learned to have fun. I learned to really enjoy what being an entrepreneur and working could be. So that's the best example I have. Nothing super catastrophic, but definitely at the time, if you asked me, was this a good thing? I would have been like, no, definitely not. But looking back at it now, I'm like, oh, of course, everything always happens for my best interest.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to have that positive attitude, and it could only do good for you. Um, so one of my favorite books of all time is The Art of Happiness. I'm not sure if you read it. Have you read that book before?
The Art of Happiness. Um, no, I read Zen and the Art of Happiness. I think it's a little bit different.
Okay,
I
yeah,
believe.
this one's by like the Dalai Lama, whatever.
Okay.
Um, and I just want to share this because this is something that has totally changed my life. And it's just so simple. And I don't know why I never thought about it. It's just being compassionate to other people. If you're compassionate to other people, like little things. I'll make an example. We have a coffee machine here at work or something, and you lessen the suffering of everybody you possibly can in the littlest way. If you just clean the little dab of coffee that might spill on their shirt or might get on their cup, you change the course of their entire day. They didn't have that little flaw in the middle of the day that just sent them on a track to negativity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and people standing on the side of the road asking for money. Of course, you can't always give them money, but at least give them a smile. Give them a wave or something. There's those little things that we can do and just try to lessen people's suffering. I think is a great way, no matter how big or small, to increase your own happiness. And of course, you shouldn't do it for those own reasons, just to make yourself feel better. But realize it's all for the greater good.
Yeah. And I'd also like kind of push back on you there and say that it's okay for it to be for you, right? Because this is my belief. And there may be people who listen to this and go, man, that guy's an asshole. But I believe that no one does anything purely altruistically. I believe that contributing and making the world a better place and making things better for other people is one of the most fulfilling things you can do. And so for people who start doing it, they realize, wow, this makes me really happy. And so when you look at the people just sacrifice, like we're human beings who derive our feelings through the actions that we take, and those actions they are taking, we're making them feel better, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, they're just such good people. It's like, yeah, they are good people, but you understand, like, they feel good. They're doing this out of satisfaction. Like, we're beings that are trying to survive and have the best possible experience, and we're all doing the best we can. And so it's okay to do things and say, I'm going to go volunteer this weekend for an hour because I'm going to feel better. Because anyone who says that, oh, you know what, I'm just doing it for the kids, that's not true. Like, why do you do that? You're doing it because it makes you
Yeah,
feel
you
good.
always see that person on Facebook posing with all these kids. Like, just did this great charity, did it for the kids. Like, why did you
Yeah,
post it on Facebook?
exactly. So I don't think really anything happens altruistically, and that's okay. You know, life's about, that's like the beauty of like our human species, is that we've been programmed to feel good when we do good for others, and that's like the most beautiful thing.
Yeah. Another trick that I kind of learned in terms of feeling like happiness and reducing stress in general and all that type of stuff is, which is funny because I guess not everybody's going to think this way, but I like the feeling of being insignificant. Like, I like looking out into the stars, picturing myself on this tiny planet in this little spiral of a galaxy that's just one of over 900 billion. And that makes me feel better. It takes the load off a little bit.
Yeah, you're like, I don't actually have to do anything. I'm just a little speck of dust here, just hanging out on Earth.
Exactly.
No responsibility,
Yeah,
but if I
I don't really
do,
matter.
yeah, but if I do something cool, icing on the cake, right?
That's right. So, um, where can people find you and check out some more of your stuff? Because, I think this kind of stuff is so beneficial to everybody. I think a lot of people put in so much work into their health and fitness, what they're eating and how many times to go to the gym. But the happiness part, the low stress part, I think that's where you win. And I think that's what helps you make real results, long lasting results in life. So you obviously have a lot of good information to offer. So where can people find you on your website and your social media?
Yeah, so you guys can find us at zendudefitness.com, and then across social media on Instagram, Zendude Fitness, on YouTube, Zendude Fitness. And really what our main intention is to bring this Zen philosophy of just being into the exercise and the wellness realm, and helping people discover what it feels like to find something that truly aligns with you, and how much easier and less, I guess, tension there is behind following through with the program, whether that be eating healthier or sticking with exercise program or just having better habits. And so it's all about getting back to that Zen philosophy of being. And so if you guys want to learn more about that, definitely check us out over our site, zendudefitness.com.
Right on. Well, everybody, luckily for you, I already have podcasts scheduled out for the entire month of January. So you're going to get a new episode every week from now through the end of the month. And I think next week we have uh, former professional soccer player Laura Lindsay, who I am really looking forward to talking to as a soccer player. I'm going to drill her on everything she knows. So find us back here next week. We're going to do it again. And again, thanks, Brandon. And everybody, just try to be a little happy out there, right? Well, that's all we can do. Cool. Well, again, thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Until next time, see you again. Later.